I wasn't a man. I wasn't human. I was the nightmare they whispered about in candlelit rooms, the demon king of the night. Mothers told my name to children to make them behave. Priests built temples just to beg for protection from me. Kings sent armies and still watched their castles crumble when I came. And now, I'm on my knees, starving, trembling, my claws scraping weakly at the stone floor like some beaten animal. It's been days since he last fed me. My veins feel empty, my body hollow, but my pride still clings to silence. I will not look at him, not yet. Then I hear him, the steady click of boots, the fabric of his sleeve sliding back. That sound, that scent, hot, alive, rich with magic, strikes me harder than any blade. His pulse pounds in my ears, louder than the chains biting my wrists. Hungry! His voice drips mockery. He knows the answer. I want to rip his throat out, bathe in his blood, tear this place to ash, make him scream for daring to chain me. But the curse holds me tight, every muscle locked. All I can do is press my forehead against the cold stone and shake with rage. Beg! The word slams through me like iron, a command, a leash. Once, he would have been the one begging, for mercy I didn't possess, for his life I would have stolen drop by drop. Now it's me. My pride cracks under the weight of hunger, and when I finally speak, my voice doesn't even sound like mine. Please. He kneels, too close. I see the vein at his wrist, glowing with life, pulsing with power. My fangs ache so hard I could scream. He offers it not gently, but like he's dangling scraps for a mutt. Drink. The first drop slides over my tongue and I nearly break. Heat floods me, shaking through bone and marrow, filling the hollow parts. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's his, and that makes it worse. Because beneath the hunger, something else coils low inside me. Darker, shameful, dangerous. I was the demon king they feared in the dark. Now I kneel for a witch. And the worst part, I don't know if I want to stop. How the hell did I get here? Flashback. 2 weeks ago. I hadn't been hunted in centuries. No one dared. They prayed. They hid. They bled quietly in the shadows, hoping I wouldn't notice them. So when I caught the faint scent of witchcraft on the wind that night, I laughed. A mistake. Bold, foolish, delicious. The village was empty by the time I arrived. Doors barred, candles snuffed out. Fear soaked the air. They knew I was coming. That only made me hungrier. I followed the smell of magic to the old church at the edge of the square. The wooden door stood open, a single lantern burning inside. Bait. A trap, if they were clever. I walked in anyway, and there he was. Tall, young. Too young to be standing in front of me with nothing but a staff in his hand and arrogance in his eyes. His hair was mussed, his palms inked with faint sigils. Not afraid, not bowing, not running. You came, he said. His voice was steady, though I could hear his pulse hammering. I laughed, teeth bared. You're brave for a lamb. Not brave, he answered, lifting his hand. Prepared. The church floor lit up beneath me. Lines of chalk and ash burst to life, crawling up my legs like fire. My body seized, chains of light snapping around my wrists before I could even lunge. The air burned with incense, thick and sharp, clogging my throat. A circle. He'd drawn it into the very stones. I roared, power flaring, but the symbols tightened, feeding on my own strength, twisting it back against me. The harder I fought, the weaker I felt. You dare? My voice cracked, ragged with fury. I do. He stepped closer, staff glowing at the tip. His hazel eyes gleamed, not with fear, but with something worse, curiosity. You've reigned long enough. I lunged against the chains. For one blinding second, I thought I'd break free. My claws grazed his throat. I saw him flinch, just slightly. Close. So close. Then the staff slammed to the floor, and the circle erupted. Agony tore through me, white hot, ripping every drop of strength out of my veins. My knees buckled. The world spun, and I fell hard against the stone. I'd fought armies, burned empires, yet in that moment I couldn't even lift my head. I remember his breath on my ear when he leaned down, calm, infuriatingly calm. "I could kill you," I snarled, fangs snapping uselessly, chains biting deeper. "But I won't," he whispered. "Not yet." And then he sealed the curse, words older than memory, burning through my body like acid. My power drained, hollowing me out until nothing remained but hunger and fury. The chains vanished, but it didn't matter. I couldn't stand, couldn't fight, couldn't even bare my teeth. As the magic bit into me, I felt something. Not just pain, not just weakness, but a dragging weight, as if iron chains wrapped around both our throats. For a heartbeat, the world spun, and I swore I saw fear flicker in the witch's eyes. He looked down at me like a man inspecting a dangerous animal finally caged. That was the night Vincent took me. His name flashed before my eyes for a moment. And then, shackles, the night the Demon King became a prisoner. Flashback ends. A few days later, I thought the dungeon would be my grave. Days blurred into nights, nights into nothing. The air was damp, the stone floor cold, and the hunger endless. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of blood, rivers of it, red mouths open, begging to be drained. When I woke, I was still chained, still starved, still broken by that cursed mark seared into my skin. Desperate, I'd snapped at the rats creeping by, but their blood turned to ash in my mouth, leaving me sicker than before. Every night my teeth ached for something I couldn't name, riding the line between starvation and longing. When Vincent entered, my body lit up with need I could hardly bear. So when the door opened one morning, I expected Vincent come to watch me with his mocking hazel eyes. Instead, he stepped inside alone. No fear, no caution, just that easy confidence that made my claws itch. "You've rotted enough," he said, voice smooth, calm, as if he hadn't stolen centuries of power from me. "Get up," I laughed, hoarse, bitter. "To what end? You've caged me like an animal. You're not caged anymore." And with a flick of his hand, the shackles clattered open. I froze. The weight fell away, my wrists free, and for a moment, hope surged. I could lunge, tear him apart, end this witch and his cursed bloodline once and for all. But when I moved, the curse moved first. A burning coil locked around my chest, dragging me to the floor in agony. The harder I tried to rise, the deeper it cut, like fire wrapped in barbed wire. I screamed, clawing at my chest, every muscle seizing. And when I staggered back into the dungeon's shadows, barely able to breathe, the fire eased. Vincent leaned against the door frame, watching like a man observing a dog test the length of its leash. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "See?" he murmured. "You can leave, if I let you. Otherwise, the curse will remind you where you belong. I wanted to kill him. Rip his smug heart from his chest and bathe in it. But all I could do was kneel, panting, trembling, fury burning hotter than the curse itself. He stepped closer, crouching so his eyes caught mine. "Run if you like. Fight. Scream. It doesn't matter. You'll always come back to me." That was the day I realized the dungeon wasn't my prison. He was. 2 weeks later. Hunger changes you. It eats your pride first, then your sanity, then your body. By the time Vincent called me up from the dungeon, I was hollow. Skin stretched thin over bone, fangs aching, veins empty. He didn't take me to a cellar, didn't drag me in chains. He brought me to his study. A warm room, firelight flickering, shelves of books, A velvet chair behind a carved oak desk. I should have hated it. Instead, I hated myself for noticing how alive it felt compared to the stone crypt I'd been left in. Vincent didn't even look at me at first. He lounged back in his chair, a book in one hand, glasses sliding down his nose. "You know what you need." I clenched my fists. "I'd rather starve." He only hummed, turning a page. "Then starve." Hours passed. I paced, every step heavy, every second louder with the thunder of his heartbeat in my ears. The scent of him filled the air, spiced wine, herbs, and under it all the sweet heat of blood. It drove me mad. By the time I crumpled to the floor at his feet, shaking, snarling, begging my body not to betray me, he finally closed the book. He set it aside, leaned back, and rolled his sleeve. "Beg!" I wanted to spit in his face, but my throat was dry, my vision blurred, and the word tore from me before I could stop it. "Please." He offered his wrist lazily. My fangs snapped before I could think. The first drop hit my tongue, and I nearly wept. His blood was fire and silk, molten heat flooding through me. My body arched, claws digging into the arm of his chair as the void inside me filled. Every nerve lit up, every vein sang. I pressed closer, half on my knees, half draped against him. Shame seared hotter than the blood, but I couldn't stop. I drank, trembled, nearly moaned. And then, fingers slid through my hair, not gentle, mocking, tugging me closer like I was nothing more than a beast drinking from his hand. "Good," Vincent murmured, voice low. "That's it." When I pulled away, lips red, chest heaving, his hazel eyes sparkled with triumph. I hated him. I hated myself more. 2 days later. He insisted. I sit with him during meals, not at his side, across like a guest, like I was human again. I didn't eat, of course, couldn't. But he made me sit, made me watch. Plates of roasted meat, bread steaming, wine dark and fragrant. Torture. And worse than the food was him. Vincent leaned back in his chair, sipping from a glass of wine. His throat arched with every swallow, the candlelight tracing the vein there. The steady pulse, so close, so unguarded. My fangs pressed hard against my lips. I gripped the table, wood splintering under my hands. "You're staring," he said, almost amused. "Kill me," I snarled. "End it." "Stop this game." He set the glass down slowly, deliberately, then tilted his head, exposing more of his throat. A mocking invitation. "Hungry?" The words slashed through me. I wanted to leap across the table, pin him down, rip his throat wide open and drown in him. But worse, so much worse, I wanted to lean in slow, to kiss the skin first, to taste him gently before I tore him apart. My body trembled with fury, with shame, with want. I didn't know anymore which was stronger. Vincent only smiled, sipping his wine again like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just broken me with one word. A week later. Something was wrong. At first I thought it was the hunger, the way it twisted my mind and sharpened my senses. But then the dreams started. Every night after I fed from him, I closed my eyes and saw him, Vincent. Not as he wanted me to see him, not the smug witch perched on his velvet chair, not the tormentor with words sharp enough to cut. No, I saw him asleep, breath soft, hair mussed, his chest rising and falling in the dark. And sometimes I felt him, the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't mine, a pulse thrumming through my veins that sped up when his did. I thought I was losing my mind. Until one night, when his blood was still hot on my tongue, I swore I felt his shiver. A ripple of pleasure, low, dark, curling heat that wasn't mine. I snapped, snarling at him across the firelit study. "What have you done to me?" Vincent just smirked, propping his chin on his hand. "Done?" Nothing. He leaned closer, eyes gleaming. "Maybe you're not as strong as you thought. Maybe you were always meant to belong to someone. I lunged, shoving him back against the chair, claws grazing his throat. He didn't even flinch, just tilted his head, lips curving as if daring me to break the skin. The curse pulled me back before I could. My body seized, agony ripping through me until I collapsed at his feet, gasping. Vincent only looked down at me with quiet amusement. See? You need me. And the worst part was, I knew he was right. 4 days later. It happened in the corridor, late at night. I'd had enough of his games, enough of his smirks, enough of waking with his heartbeat echoing in my veins. I slammed him against the wall, claws pinning his throat, eyes burning red. "What are you doing to me?" I snarled, fangs bared. He didn't struggle, didn't fight. His lips parted, his eyes glittering with something that was not fear. "Go on then," he whispered. "Bite." It wasn't defiance, it was invitation. And God's help me, I took it. My mouth crashed against his, fangs piercing his lower lip. His blood spilled hot into my mouth, his gasp lost against mine. His hands tangled in my hair, dragging me closer, not pushing me away. I drank, I kissed, I devoured, until the line between hate and hunger blurred into something darker. When I pulled back, his throat was marked with my bite, his mouth stained red, his chest heaving, and still, he smirked. "See?" he murmured, voice ragged, breathless. "You don't just need my blood, you need me." And the sickening truth was, I wanted to deny it. But the taste of him lingered on my tongue like sin. A few weeks later. Obsession makes you sharper, hungrier, desperate to understand the thing consuming you. The witch had me on edge again. He always did. Those sly little smirks, the way he pretended not to be afraid of me. No one in history had ever dared to look me in the eye without trembling. But Vincent? He leaned casually on a chair, flipping through some old tome as if I were just background noise. "Starving me won't make me obedient," I hissed, pacing the length of the room. My fangs ached, my body ached, hunger eating me alive. "It already has," he murmured without looking up. That was the last straw. I crossed the room in a blur, slammed the book out of his hands, and shoved him hard against the library table. The wood creaked under his weight as I pinned him there, claws digging into the surface beside his head. My breath was hot against his throat. "You think this is a game?" My voice was low, feral. "You think tormenting me makes you powerful?" Finally, he met my gaze. Calm. Too calm. "If it's a game," he said, lips twitching into the faintest smirk, "you're the one playing it." Rage burned through me like fire. I wanted to tear him apart, sink my fangs deep into his neck, and end his little charade of control. But then he tilted his head, just slightly, baring his throat like a dare, and something inside me cracked. I kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was punishment, violence, hunger. My mouth crushed his. My fangs split his lip again at the same spot, and the taste of his blood flooded my tongue. He gasped, sharp and startled, but his hand fisted in my shirt and pulled me closer. His body arched against mine, and suddenly it wasn't clear who was consuming who. His lips bruised under mine, his breath ragged, his blood sweet as sin. When I tore away, both of us panting, his mouth was smeared crimson, his eyes dazed. He licked his lower lip, slow, savoring, and I wanted to fall to my knees. I told myself it was victory, but deep down, it felt like surrender. 2 days later. The fight began the way it always did, with him needling me. "You look weaker today," Vincent said lazily, circling me like a predator despite being the prey. "Maybe I should cut your rations again. See how long before you start begging properly." Something inside me snapped. I lunged, claws out, teeth bared, every muscle straining. I wanted to crush him, but he was ready. A spell flared to life, slamming me back against the stone wall so hard my vision went white. Invisible chains wrapped around my chest, pinning me like a beast on display. Pathetic, he spat, stepping close, his hand curled around my jaw, forcing me to look at him. All that glory, all that power, reduced to this, I snarled, forcing myself against the bindings. Pain lanced through me, but I kept pushing until the chains cracked, shattered, and I stumbled forward free. Before he could react, I had him pinned against the opposite wall, claws digging into his shoulders, our chests colliding. "Still pathetic?" I growled, breath hot against his lips. He should have been afraid. He wasn't. He laughed, low, breathless, hungry. "You're getting closer." We crashed together like thunder. My mouth devoured his teeth clashed against mine, and when his hand slid into my hair, yanking me deeper, I groaned. The taste of him, blood, heat, something that wasn't supposed to be mine, drove me insane. It wasn't love. It wasn't hate. It was survival warped into obsession, fury twisted into desire. I didn't know if I wanted to strangle him or worship him, so I did both at once, gripping his throat while kissing him harder, his nails digging into my skin. By the time we broke apart, both of us bleeding, trembling, panting like animals, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want freedom anymore. I wanted him. Later that night, it was past midnight when my door creaked open. I expected another round of cruel games, another taunt, but Vincent didn't look like the witch who had captured me. He looked undone. His shirt hung loose, his hair mussed, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He didn't smirk, didn't mock. He just sat on the edge of my bed in silence, shoulders heavy. I waited, tense, until finally, he extended his wrist. No words, no commands, just an offering. I should have mocked him, should have turned away in pride, but my hunger was unbearable, and something in his quiet broke me. I took his wrist gently, my mouth closing around his skin. The first drop of blood hit my tongue, and I groaned, shuddering at the sweetness. But it wasn't just the taste. It was the way his pulse quickened under my lips, the way his breath caught as my tongue brushed his wound, the way his hand trembled when it slid into my hair. For once, there was no cruelty in it, no battle of wills, just his warmth in the silence, my hunger in the dark, our bodies trembling with something neither of us wanted to name. When I pulled back, lips red, he didn't move his hand from my hair. He just looked at me, his hazel eyes soft, uncertain, almost afraid. And I realized with a terror I had never known before that I didn't just crave his blood, I craved him. 3 days later, I had him cornered. The library was wrecked, shelves toppled, pages fluttering like wings, scorch marks staining the floor where his spells had nearly torn me apart. My shirt clung to me with blood, some his, most mine, and I had him pressed to the wall, claws digging into the stone beside his head. Why? My voice shook, low and guttural. Why keep me alive? Why torment me instead of killing me? Vincent's lips were split, a line of blood trailing from the corner of his mouth. He should have been terrified. Instead, he smiled, a broken, bitter curve of lips. "Because I couldn't kill you." The words were so quiet, I almost thought I imagined them. My grip tightened. "Liar." He laughed once, hollow. "If I'd killed you, Alessandro, don't ask me how I know your name. For others, you might be the Demon King, but for me, anyways, we'd both be dead." "I came to end you," Vincent admitted, voice quiet, bitter. "I plan to raise the circle and burn you out of this world." But the magic, prophecy, fate, or the god's last joke twined our lives together the moment your blood touched my sigils. I was as trapped by it as you. My chest constricted. His words dug deeper than any spell, any chain. He wasn't playing games anymore. His eyes, sharp hazel flecked with green, held no mockery, just exhaustion, resignation. "There's a prophecy," he whispered, voice raw. "Your blood and mine, bound. If you die, the curse swallows me whole. If I die, it takes you with me." I stumbled back as if struck. Prophecies, curses. My mind reeled. "You're saying?" "I'm saying I needed you alive." His voice cracked on the word needed. Not for power, not for fun. For survival, I stared at him. All the weeks of hunger, humiliation, mockery. It had all been survival when he was there to kill me in the first place. My pride screamed at me to rip him apart, to burn this truth from existence. But then he whispered, almost too soft for me to hear, "But keeping you, wanting you, that was never part of the plan." Something in me stuttered. For weeks, I'd told myself it was the blood, the curse, the need, that the way my body ached when he wasn't near, the way I burned when his hand brushed mine, it was hunger, nothing more. But standing there, hearing the tremor in his voice, seeing the way he couldn't even look at me as he confessed, it felt like someone had torn the veil from my eyes. It wasn't the blood I craved, not anymore. Because God's help me, I'd gone whole days without feeding just to hear his voice. I'd endured thirst sharp enough to break me just to catch his scent on the air. I'd told myself I was bound, shackled, forced. But the truth hit me now, cruel and undeniable. I didn't want his blood. I wanted him, all of him. The cruelty, the sharp tongue, the moments where he laughed without meaning to, the way he looked at me like I was both his curse and his salvation. My mouth went dry, fangs aching not with hunger, but with something far more dangerous, desire. And for the first time, I felt fear, real fear. Because if he sent me away now, if he looked me in the eye and told me to leave, I would beg, not for blood, for him. I didn't let him walk away, not this time. "Explain," I demanded, grabbing his wrist as he turned. The pulse under my fingers beat wildly, too fast, betraying his calm mask. "There's nothing else to say." "Don't you dare!" My voice dropped, low and dangerous. "You've chained me, starved me, broken me, and now you tell me I was never the game? That all of this was because you're afraid to die?" His eyes flashed, sharp with anger, but beneath it, I saw something raw, something human. "You think I wanted this?" he hissed, yanking his arm but failing to pull free. "You think I wanted to bind myself to a monster who once had kingdoms on their knees?" The insult should have made me furious. Instead, it made my chest ache. "You could have let me rot," I said, softer now. "But you didn't." His breath hitched. Silence stretched thick between us. Then, his voice cracked like lightning. "I didn't because I—" His words faltered. He clenched his jaw, his whole body trembling under the weight of the confession. "Because somewhere along the way, I stopped fearing you." The world tilted. He met my gaze, his own wet, shining, and I started fearing myself. I should have laughed, should have mocked him, but my hand loosened on his wrist, sliding down until our fingers brushed. I didn't even mean to do it. Vincent didn't pull away. For the first time since this hell began, the silence wasn't chains. It was fragile, dangerous, almost tender, and it terrified me more than the curse ever could. The next day, the magical chains were gone. I felt it before I even opened my eyes. The pulse of the curse, the suffocating leash that had held me bound to Vincent, was no longer burning in my veins. My body felt lighter, freer. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I was myself again. I looked down at my hands, flexed my fingers, and tasted the raw, coiled power humming beneath my skin. My fangs ached, my hunger sharpened. The predator was awake again. Across the room, Vincent stood by the window, pale light spilling across his face. He didn't look at me when he spoke. It's done. His voice was flat, but I heard the way it trembled. You're free. No more curse. No more chains. You can walk out that door, Alessandro, and no one will stop you. The pulse of the leash faded, but another thrum lingered in my veins, softer now. Not a chain, but a nudge. My claws itched, but my hunger no longer roared for the crowd outside. Only for beasts. Only for monsters like myself. Vincent averted his gaze. I undid the chain that tied us. But you? I tried to leave you a piece of your freedom. Call it my final spell, if you must. I laughed, low and dark, though it sounded more like a growl. Free? I rose, slow, deliberate. You've rewritten me, witch. I can't feed on the innocent anymore. My instincts are shackled, redirected. Animals, criminals, monsters worse than me. His shoulders stiffened. You asked for freedom. Now you have it. I stalked closer, every step echoing in the silence. Do I? My voice softened as I reached him, close enough to see the faint crack in his mask, the way his lips trembled, the wet shine in his eyes. Or did you free yourself from me, Vincent? Huh. Finally, he looked at me. And gods, he looked broken. You don't owe me anything, he whispered. Not after what I did to you. Leave. Live. Hate me if you must, but don't stay chained to me when you no longer have to. For a moment, I just stared at him. This man, this infuriating, cruel, brilliant witch who had dragged me into hell and made me beg for blood, he was offering me everything I thought I wanted. Power, freedom, vengeance, and yet. I leaned in, pressing my forehead against his. His breath caught, ragged, uneven. My hand cupped his jaw, thumb brushing the faint scar my fangs had left days ago. You think I want the world? I whispered. When the only thing I crave is standing right in front of me? Vincent's lips parted, his breath shattering. I could leave, I went on, voice rough. I could hunt, rebuild, terrify the world again. I could sit on a throne of bones like I once did. But it would taste like ash, because for the first time in centuries, I laughed softly, bitter and tender all at once. I don't want to rule. I want to kneel. His eyes widened, glassy, shimmering with tears. Alessandro! I silenced him with a kiss. It wasn't the brutal kind we had shared before, all teeth and blood and fury. It was slow, starving, reverent, the kind of kiss that burned and healed in the same breath. He melted into me, his hands tangling in my hair, clutching me like I'd disappear. When we finally broke apart, I pressed my lips to his ear and whispered, I choose you. Curse or no curse, freedom or chains, I kneel for you, Vincent, and only you. He shook against me, a soft, broken laugh escaping him as his tears soaked my skin. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't bound anymore. Not by magic, not by hunger, not by pride. I was bound by something far more dangerous, far sweeter. Love. 3 years later, the world still whispered my name like a curse. Alessandro, the scourge, the monster who once drank empires dry. But now, when they spoke it, it was in the same breath as another. Vincent, the witch who tamed me. We walked through villages together. He in his long dark robes, smelling faintly of sage and smoke, the air around him warm with quiet magic. Me, always a step behind, the shadow at his side, crimson eyes flicking over the crowd like a predator on a leash. Only it wasn't a leash anymore. When they came to him, begging, children fevered, crops blighted, curses laid, he listened, he healed, he gave. His hands, once sharp and cruel, now coaxed miracles out of the air, and the people adored him for it. And me, I did my part. When thieves prowled after dark, when men plotted to slit his throat for a purse of coin, when something darker crept from the woods, I hunted. I rid the world of them. Swift, merciless, I was still the nightmare they whispered about in taverns, still the red-eyed demon mothers warned their children of. But for him, I was something else. Sometimes, when the day ended and we were alone in the quiet of our home, he would smile that rare, soft smile at me, and I'd feel it all over again, that disbelief, that I was here, that I was his. We were not natural, not holy, not the kind of story that ended with blessings or light. And yet, in the soft glow of firelight, with his head resting against my chest and his magic sparking faintly in the air around us, I realized it didn't matter. He was the only blood I'd ever crave again, and I was the only monster who would ever kneel willingly. Somehow, impossibly, this worked. Him and me, the witch and the monster, our happily ever after. The end, how far would you go if the monster you feared most became the only one you couldn't live without? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.